Several. So we got hit a week ago Friday with the snowstorm that left us with 23 inches and then 30-inch snow drifts. So that was fun. Fun for my husband.
Because he got the shovel.
Yeah, I did go out for like 20 minutes and then I couldn't feel any extremities. So I did come in. But then this past Friday, we had an ice storm. So it rained, we had torrential rains, and then the temperatures dropped. So everything froze to a sheet of ice. And then we had like a light snow. So you couldn't see the black ice under the.
Wow. It sounds so dangerous for driving.
Oh, there were so many accidents. So yeah.
Hey, hi, everybody. We're catching up with the East Coast where we're in Southern California with the heat and.
Yeah, stay there. Don't come east.
Snow, I don't mind visiting snow, but it certainly doesn't interest me long term.
Yeah. And now, are you a native Californian?
Well, it's worse than that. I was born in Hawaii. So
all right then.
I grew up in California, but I was born in Hawaii, so I couldn't get more afraid of snow if you had planned it. But again, like, I don't mind visiting it, but even when we ski in our local mountains here, I'm good for a day at the very most. And maybe even half a day. And if I could spend the rest of the time by a fire with a hot toddy, then now you're talking.
Hot toddy, I am right with you. Let me know, I'll be there.
So, but I have so many friends right now. I belong to this group of people. We share a podcast in common, and so many of them are on the East Coast, and they keep sending me pictures. You know, in day one, it's beautiful. Look at the ice and the snow. And day two, they're still excited. And like now, all their posts are, I hate it. I'm tired of it. I want to move. So,
yeah, when you have to remove the snow yourself, it's just not fun.
No, I think that's why you have kids, right?
Well, they're out of the house.
Oh. I think
so we're back to square one.
So, well, good. Looks like we're going to have a nice group today. How are you doing, Janet?
I'm doing fine. I just want to give messages. Jan Hansen has to go get a crown removed or put in or something. And Lynn has a bank meeting. They've been texting. So I just want to let you know they won't be on today. But
okay. A bank meeting. What's that about?
Probably how to collect all her money since she retired and what to do with it. Yeah.
Okay. It's a good thing then, right? They're not calling her in for anything. No,
it's all good. She gets to sleep 12 hours a day. It's amazing.
I know. Well, and the fact that she can, you know,
I know.
I was not feeling well over the weekend, and yeah, I mean, even I didn't sleep 12 hours, you know, 2 or 3 hours here, and that's it. But yeah, I wish I could sleep a 12-hour stretch once in a while.
Lisa, what did you have? Was it COVID?
No, it's just the flu. I had nausea, you know, on typical vomity stuff on Friday, and body aches on Saturday, and Sunday started to feel great again. My energy is all back to normal today, but yesterday I was just a little slower. So yeah, and I haven't really been around anybody. So, you know, especially anybody positive in a long time. So I'm pretty certain it wasn't COVID.
Oh, good. Oh, good. I'm glad you're better. Look at all everybody showing up. We haven't seen Colleen for a long time, and everybody's here. Yeah.
And hi, Betty. Are you keeping warm?
Trying.
You and Alona representing New Jersey?
It snowed this morning a little bit, actually. Yeah.
Oh, okay. And Riley's okay in the snow, right?
Yeah, as long as she has her little snow boots on, she's okay. There's a lot of salt that they put out, so I have to keep her feet protected.
For those of you that don't know, Riley doesn't like the wet, and so she will cross her little legs and not go to the bathroom for days if she has to. So I'm always worried about her.
Thank you. She's managing.
And hi, Marie, how are you?
Hello, I'm fine.
How did it all go?
It was a very hard week last week.
Yeah.
It was incredibly difficult. I want to say by Wednesday, I was feeling a little bit better. Thursday and Friday were amazing. So yes, Ilona, I realized I needed to get that. And then he stopped in on Saturday because he had started working on the kitchen. Well, this was a project that he had from a year ago and it took him forever. So before he left, he decided to take off all the doors off the kitchen cabinets. And I don't know. So he left it all. So he came by Saturday to put them back on. And being an empath is serious business because he came back and there I was again, a hot mess. I was crying and just the whole bit. And then he left and it took me all that evening to recover. The next day I went for a jog and then I felt much, much better after that. And so this morning feeling much better. I studied yesterday, so it's good. It's good. So, but it is a step at a time.
Yeah. And how is it being in your own space by yourself?
It's really nice. It's really nice. It's peaceful, which is what I needed. I needed that peace and that tranquility. It's funny because your mind, again, this is that not taking things personally that we're talking about today. And it really comes down to the attachments that we form and how difficult it is for us to let go. And really letting go is not just love for the other person, but it's also love for yourself.
Yeah. I have to say in this book so far, in every chapter I've read, one thing has popped out every time different paragraphs or different sentence or something that I know for sure he wrote about me. Like I'm reading it, I'm like, oh my God, this is about me. This is me. He's talking to me. And especially in this most recent agreement that we're going to talk about, there have been several things in there. For those of you that know, or don't know, I had a long-term relationship end at a really inopportune time. And, I really held on to that for a long time, but that one paragraph and that one sentence says it was a gift. And I'm like, oh my God, it was. Woo-hoo. So I'm really excited to dig a little deeper into this chapter because it felt like it was written specifically for me. So anyway, Janet, we probably aren't going to do a meditation today.
No, I didn't plan, but maybe Marilyn wants to. I would love to see a little picture of Gwen every week. I want to see how she's good, getting bigger. Is she asleep?
She's asleep.
Oh.
Don't wake her up.
Don't wake up. She's such an angel. Oh my goodness. Thank you for bringing her on.
Does anyone know how Tiffany's doing?
I was just gonna say, do we have a picture of Tiffany's son, Leo?
I've seen him on Facebook. He's adorable. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'll reach out to her and ask her if she'll share with us.
Yes.
Okay.
I was going to reach out to her too and just be like, hi, can I cook you food? Because it's like a mom at Colin's school did that for us and it was really nice. She made us like spaghetti and it was just nice to have a meal. So I was going to reach out and ask.
That's so sweet.
Well, and if you do, I'll reach out too, but if you hear from her and she needs anything, will you let us know?
Sure. I don't have her number, but I'll email her.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
If I have it, I'll send it to you, Liz. Okay. I'm going to look right now.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Marilyn, you're not on the spot. Do you feel like doing a meditation today, or we'll just move straight into our conversation?
Why don't we do the protection and see if a little extra comes in?
Sounds good. Sounds
Okay. Okay. I love not knowing until we're doing it. It's good.
We know that. We know that.
It has to be right in the moment. Yay. Okay. Everybody good? Okay. Get comfy. Shake out the shoulders a little bit. Shake out. That's funny. They're already dictating what to say. think of the shoulder blades, your little wings there. Maybe you've had them out, maybe you've been flying around, maybe you're just tucking them back in. Just move them around a little bit and feel the freedom in the shoulder blades and in the shoulders, and feel that freedom move down your arms. And feel the shoulder blades settle down and the shoulders settle down. And notice the energy in the heart. This is so cute. They just want me to tell you. I read an article that, and they're just saying to bring that up, that there are tests done, and you probably already know them, and I don't even know the technical terms, but when the heart gives off so much energy. When you focus heart energy and emanating out from the heart to wherever you want to, or the all, it magnifies, I think it was 500 times. So it's incredible what our direction will do in terms of magnifying the energy. So take a deep breath and then let it go, and feel the energy of the heart. And as you breathe in and out gently at whatever pace feels comfortable, feel it just spreading through your body, out through your arms, up through your shoulders and neck, going upward, down through the abdomen, down through the legs. We clothe ourselves in a robe of light composed of the love, the power, and the wisdom of divine consciousness. We wear it not only for our own protection, but also so that those who see it or come in contact with it will be drawn to divine and heal. Please let the light surround us. Let it permeate us. Let it fill us up. Let it emanate from us. And let us always be mindful that we're doing this all the time. We are the light and the love, and we reflect back to each other. And we're reflection magnified with divine consciousness every breath. Every breath as you breathe gently is mouth-to-mouth resuscitation with divine consciousness. Feel the freedom in your neck. Allow your head to tilt this way and that just slightly. Feel the grace and the sweetness of the movement. Put your attention back to the shoulder blades. They're waking up. Let them go wherever they'd like. Now come back to the heart. And as that love and divine consciousness fills you, let it emanate, and notice how on the next breath, it goes down and that light fills the abdomen. And then it goes down through the pelvis, down through the legs, down through the soles of your feet. We're a magnet to the earth plane, and yet the light, our heart is emanating in all directions. And we are one, as above, so below, at peace and with wonder at the balance and sweetness of the all. And there it is.
Thank you, Marilyn.
And Lisa, how are you feeling? I know you weren't feeling well for a couple days. You better?
Today's a great day.
Good.
Yeah, I'm feeling a lot better. Thank you. And you too, Marilyn?
Yeah, so far so good.
Good. So I know we're going to look at Marie for help again on this chapter. And hi, baby Gwen, she's awake. My opinion about this chapter, Marie, is I found it liberating in a way. None of it is anything I haven't heard before or hasn't been explained to me in different ways or at different times. I absorbed almost every word of this chapter with little distraction, in my mind. Usually I wander. But the way that he talks about not taking it personally, the way he created examples, and the way he reiterated constantly throughout, I lost you, you moved, there you are, was, like I said, liberating. It was just astonishing what, all of a sudden it's just in black and white. Even though all of us talk about it, even when I was in therapy with Janet, it's all very clear. When you love yourself, someone else will love you. You don't, when you least want it, when you least need it, you know what I mean? When you're the most confident in yourself and most assured is when you receive the gift of saying somebody else in your life, for example. So I found this book, this chapter, to be amazing for me. So
Really?
did I get it? Did I get anything out of it?
I think we all get something out of it. Even reading it the first time around, you get something out of it. And then when something happens and you go back to the book, you get something out of it. Even listening to it haphazardly or picking it up and reading a few passages here and there, there's always something you get out of it. I think that, when you read these agreements, they seem so darn simple. They're just one sentence, each one, right? You read it and you think, oh yeah, piece of cake. The problem is when you go to apply it, when you put the action behind it, right? And so the second, the third, and the fourth agreement stem out of the first agreement. So if you get the first agreement, which by the way, will be a lifetime process, it's not something that you can say, hey, I've got it mastered, I'm done, I can move ahead. I'm a firm believer that the first agreement is one that you will constantly be evolving with if you practice it. And by its nature, the second and third and fourth agreements naturally align because it's all part of the first one, right? So in terms of the second agreement, when he talks about not taking things personally, he's also talking about personal importance, whether it negatively or positively, right? If somebody comes up and says, you're so wonderful, and our ego kind of goes, oh yeah, I am wonderful, right? He's really talking about don't take it personal. He's talking about us taking on accountability, our own responsibility of what we say and do and what we take on and don't take on, right? And last week we talked about, some of these things and how do you really put it into action. But what I wanted to do is I wanted to have more of a conversation of what you guys read, because this one is a toughie when somebody's bringing their stuff to us, their projection. I don't know if it's so much a big deal for our group because we're pretty evolved comparing to being out in the world. But I think that in this particular agreement, it all depends on where you are in that moment. And if somebody's projecting onto you or bringing their stuff and you react to that, the fact that you even reacted is an indication that there's something there that I'm taking personal and it's activating me. And what am I going to do with this? Most people that don't practice would be reactive. They would be reactive. And I'm going to work really hard to not jump into the third one because those two kind of go hand in hand. Literally, you create the story and then you make the assumption out of the story you create. But anyway, so with this one, I wanted to get a little more feedback because I think this one, it really lends itself for more dialogue in terms of when we take something on like this, it's that personal importance, right? And our egos really has that incredible need to fluff up. And then when we go looking at when we take on somebody's stuff and we're reactive and we want to judge that person, that's also our ego trying to protect itself because of fear. What's behind all of that is fear of judgment, fear of being criticized, people pleasing, all of those things, whether it's positive or negative.
Alona, did you want to say?
Alona, because there's.
Well, you asked for feedback. So one of the first things I thought of was all of the therapists and healers on this call make a ton of money off of this because all the people we see in our offices have taken something personally and have never gotten over it. Period. End of story. We make a fortune off of this. And if we were really to take this on as completely as necessary, we wouldn't have a lot of work on our hands, because people would be responsible for themselves. They would be taking care of themselves, and they would be working out their relationships without having to complain about the people that they're in relationship with. So this is a really, really big element of what happens in conflict, period, end of story. And if we really lived like this, there'd be not a lot of television and movies to watch, because everything that we see on the screen is people taking things personally and us getting caught up in what's going on in those stories and finding allegiances and looking for people who liberate themselves from it. So we are completely engulfed with three-dimensional people taking themselves personally. So to detach from this really requires a detachment from the third dimensional world that's very hard for people to make. Because when he talks about not caring about what people say, think, or feel about you, I mean, you really have to be soul aware and soul empowered, that you have a shell of protection that makes you, the word I liked in this chapter was immunity. We're all talking about immunity, left, down, right, in every possible way. But this is immunity from all of these ego degradations that don't allow us to take full responsibility for ourselves. And so, to me, this is a major, major thing. And I agree with you, Marie. Most people won't even get what impeccable with your word means. I mean, it'll take years and years for them to work that out, but they can.
Even the publisher knows that everybody struggles with the first one.
Right. But everybody can get on board with don't take it personally. You don't have to be awakened to get don't take it personally, because everybody on the planet has lived through this, or not even ever gotten over it at some point or the other. So it's a profound and really blunt way that he writes about it that I think is really effective and really powerful. But in general, the ego, is going to put somebody on a pedestal, knowing for sure that they're going to fall. And then it'll be able to complain about the person that's taken the fall and put somebody else on the pedestal. And it just goes back and forth until you destroy the pedestal. And that's a really big statement of personal power. And I'm just going to share a little anecdote about personal power from the ways that I failed to do it. So, in my, etheric spiritual world, when I was really earlier on and just started the whole channeling thing and stuff like that, I would promote people who I thought were really valuable and authentic, and I'd have them come out and do a workshop, and I really go out of my way to make sure that they were really well taken care of. And this one woman said that she was an incarnation of Sanat Kumar or whatever. She had a lot of really good things that she did, but when I invited her to come, and I actually gave up my bedroom so she could sleep there while I slept on the sofa, I was like, okay, let's see what this is like. And then she proceeded to completely try to disassemble my role on the planetary hierarchy on the planet. So that was a big deal. That's not a small thing. That's like somebody saying you were born to, like the Olympics, you were born to, be the best alpine skier in the world. And somebody comes through and says, and I'm going to take your legs from you right now, and you will never be able to complete your job. So there was this process that unfolded. And that's the point at which I said, well, we're done with that, not following up with what anybody says anymore. I'm real clear about who I am. I'm real clear about what I came for. And those who are willing to support this journey will be in appreciation and recognition of who I am. But it was a very, very hard lesson to learn, because it really cut to the core of who I am. So from that day forward, so Marilyn, you'll get a kick out of this. I clear the fields of every being that ever comes into my place. I clear the field of creation itself. I say, you clear yourself out too, because everybody's got something, even you. So clear it all out before we get going to work, and let's start on an even plane and really work together very differently. And it's made a huge difference in the way that you even understand celestial assistance and collegiality. And I know that's on a really high level, but I'm telling you, that's how big this goes. It just doesn't stay on the earth.
I want to know how we clear. I think that's a good start.
That's another discussion. We can talk about that another time. But I'm just making a point that it's really important, because he even talks about that in there. You're going to hear the voices from God and from these other beings and stuff. And sometimes they're just not the cleanest. And you've got to know whether it's really right for you or not.
Yeah.
So with what Alona said,
Um,
for us earthlings, is this unattainable?
It's very attainable, but I do have the quote, that Ilona was talking about. Immunity to poison in the middle of hell is the gift of this agreement.
Okay, so
That's the vaccination.
okay. Marilyn, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, it's really interesting because Alona, it's the person coming in and triggering. It's sometimes we're human and we are reactive. And when we react, it gives us this great opportunity to examine what we're reacting to and exactly what we're reacting to. And it's just, it's a tool as opposed to this detriment, I'm thinking. Because if I'm really, part of me has always been on the outside watching. I've been trying to integrate all of that. And it's, once in a while, if you have again, I feel like I'm always observing from far away, but the things that get me or really will trigger me and cut through that, it's really a blessing to look at what it is and what it reveals. And I think that's what happened with you. You recognized exactly who you were by somebody coming in and going, no. And who are we to give them such power? Really? Really? And it's really an amazing thing. These reminders can, or our little knee-jerk reactions, when we learn that we don't need to react. Once we learn that we don't need to react to everything, the things that will kind of get that little pinch of something is a little gift to look at whatever else we need to unwrap in ourselves.
Marie, I'm just going to share a little anecdote that I kind of reminded me. In it, he keeps talking about, it's not you, it's them. It's not you, it's them. And I was out one night with Henrik and my mother. We were having drinks at a nice restaurant, and I could see my mom's mood was really dour. She was just grumpy. There was just nothing, every time she had a sip, her face got longer and longer. And I thought, we're in for something. And all of a sudden she just turned to me and she said, I can't believe how much money you spend on eggs. and I just sat there and I was like floored. And Henrik looked over at me and whispered in my ear, it's not about the eggs, right? And I said, yes, you're right. It's not about the eggs. This is something that she's dealing with. So that to me, that's real. I can sense that. I can feel that I'm looking at somebody and they're sharing something and it's really more about them projecting. And my curiosity is, I guess we get stronger. How do we shield ourselves from that? Or how do we ignore that? Or how do we constantly remind ourselves that that's really not our issue, that's their issue?
It's interesting how you were saying, because first I wanted to say that when we take things personally, in the book, he tells you that is the pure essence of selfishness, right? And that's where the guilt and the shame stems from. But in terms of something like this, it's recognizing that the moment you become offended, or that's your own stuff coming up, right? That's you trying to defend yourself and whatever your position is. But when you recognize it, you know, and this is a practice. I have to say this is a practice because I've often been picked out when I'm not reacting about things. Like, why aren't you so upset? Because I recognize it's not about me. Now, I'm not perfect. I'm not perfect because there are moments where, oh my goodness, I just heat up and there I go. But it's a practice because we're human.
Alona, you're on mute.
Thank you for letting me know that as I do this and hear me. So one of the, you know, this is an interesting thing I'm just going to sort of throw out there. The more we're defending against this, the more we're already participating in a reaction. So it's really not about defense. It's just about recognizing that people have their stories, people have their experiences, and we need to let them keep them.
Mm-hmm.
You just let them keep their story. You just let them keep their experience. And if they're going to suffer and they're going to struggle in it, well, he talks about it. It's their right to suffer and struggle for as long as they want, but we don't have to participate in it and we don't have to defend ourselves from it. That's a really, Lisa, this is a very hard thing, but this is the difference between those people who can do this well and those people who struggle to learn how, because the defense stops you from being able to really detach.
Yeah.
Thank
You're merely become the observer
right.
of it. Now, here is the other piece that I think people miss about this agreement, because they can recognize, okay, it's not about me, I'm walking away, and let them be with their stuff. Sometimes it's not about that, because if it's a loved one or someone that you know is in distress, it's really to recognize, okay, this isn't about me, but then how can I show up for them? You know, how can I separate myself from this, and how do I show up for them? And sometimes it could be just de-escalating the situation just by saying, hey, I see that you're really upset and I get it. Why don't we just calm down for a bit? Let's regroup later. But always give a definitive time of when you're going to come back and talk about things in a calm state. If it's, you know, a conflict that has arisen from the other side. But then if it's somebody that you know is just having a hard moment, it's just sometimes holding that space and just saying, I could see that you have a hard time.
Yeah. Mary Beth, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I just, an anecdote comes to mind, and you, Marie, just totally put your finger on it. I did that with family. So somebody projected onto me and I'm like, no, but they were working through their own crap. And I realized I'm the scapegoat. And I'm like, okay, I can hold that space. I don't care, right? It doesn't affect me, but I think I know, I'm making an assumption here. So this is next chapter, that they need somebody else to be carrying that guilt. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And that's part of the projection. That's the guilt and the shame that we participate in. It's that construct, you know? But yes, oftentimes people think that, okay, fine, it's not about me, so I'm walking away. And that's really what it's not about. Part of being impeccable with your word is recognize, okay, it's not mine. How can I show up for this person, if I can show up for this person in this moment in time? You know, it's interesting because Sarah and I, my daughter and I, were talking about it, because she was saying, well, Mom, sometimes people do really just irritate me and I just can't stand them. And she says, is that, you know, she was arguing with me, but why can't I just, and I said, no, nowhere in the book did it say that you're not entitled to have your feelings. Right? The whole thing about it is recognizing that something is upsetting you without having to put it out onto somebody else. It's about taking ownership of your stuff and say, okay, it's my stuff. Nobody else needs to carry it. But if you need to talk to somebody, like we talked last week, what's the difference between gossiping and processing, right? Processing is something that we would do with therapists, but sometimes when you need your best friend and you're trying to get through a struggle that you're having, to say, hey, can you hear me out? You know, that's another way to talk to someone about your stuff. I get this is a really hard concept because, you know, Sarah yesterday was talking to me how difficult it is at times, because sometimes you do, like she says, sometimes you do have beef with people, right? And then what do you do with that? We're human. These principles are not asking us to be perfect. They're asking us to be aware of ourselves and how, whether we're reacting or responding. And when you choose to react, you choose to be in the struggle. You choose to drink the poison. You choose not to be immune. And when you respond, it's a whole different approach. You're choosing to say, okay, this isn't all about me. And then how can I show up?
You know, I'm thinking about how much easier it is for me personally to manage these feelings with other people other than my kids, right? My family. For some reason, it's a lot easier to kind of create more of a boundary, right? And understand that this is your stuff, not my stuff. But with my kids, it's so much harder because, you know, and especially now, my two girls are going through this very tough time. They're struggling with their relationship. They live together, you know, in an apartment, and one of the girls' boyfriends is there living with them. And there's just a lot of tension going on. And so then I hear every part of it, right? From this one's end and that one's end, and keeping your boundaries and respect. Actually, what I've been realizing is I have to respect each of their boundaries, you know, that's really what it's really about. It's like, you know, I have to respect them by respecting the boundaries with them. And that's been a little, I mean, I work on it, but it's hard, you know, because you love them. I love them so much. I want them both to be okay, you know, but stepping back is, you know, it's sort of like I have to not be so emotionally charged by what's going on for them. So definitely much easier for me to do with outside situations rather than with family, you know?
Yeah.
So.
I was exactly when you said respect, that is the key, because Ilona tells me this, especially when that's my number one struggle, is respecting with family, because outside of that, it's so much easier. But when it comes to family, oh my goodness, it is really hard. I think in part it's because the attachment is so strong. And then also because family knows what buttons to push. Just as much as we know what buttons to push, they know exactly what button to push in us. And I 100% and then some agree with you that respecting, because when we love our children, we want the very best. And we want that to manifest for them. But in reality, maybe that isn't what they're wanting. They want something else, and we have to respect their choices over what we want for them. You know, especially when they're in conflict. You know, you just have to let them work it out without getting in the middle of that. You have to respect that. But Ilona, this is the lesson that Ilona has been teaching me for a while now.
It was great, Betty, because I was just going to say the word respect, and there you did. You put it right out there. That's it, because that's where this all really comes down to: respecting yourself and respecting the other, and the journey, whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
Just respect.
Did you all get a chance to read? Donna just sent us all a little message.
I'd like to hear what that means, Donna.
It's about kids being able to push our buttons.
Oh, they installed the buttons? That's why they pushed them?
The kids installed the buttons.
Just family in general. I came across that is a quote somewhere, and I can't for the life of me remember where, but like years and years ago. Of course your family knows how to push your buttons. They installed them. And it's, you know, it's part of the whole agreement that we bought into mostly unconsciously. Yeah, you know, I had to talk to my mother yesterday. Still not an easy thing to do, but you know, I actually timed it so that it would be between her nap and dinner, so that we would have a limit on this, and I could keep it from getting into the political divide in the family and what have you. And you know, I got off of it, and I was talking with my husband Jess, and said, I've come to the conclusion that I cannot change what she thinks about our liberal perspective and lifestyle and all the other things that go with that, where she's kind of on the exact opposite side of that. Because if I had her experiences, maybe I would think that the same way she thinks.
you know, and vice versa. If she had had the experiences that I think that I've been, I'm going to say mostly lucky to have had, she would believe the way I believe. Since we cannot do the Vulcan mind meld and transfer that information back and forth, the likelihood of us ever being able to see really the other's perspective is next to nothing, I'm thinking. And I was like, you know what? I think I'm getting to be okay with that. It's not my responsibility to make her understand my perspective, and I should stop feeling so put upon or backed into a corner for having to defend my views every single time I'm in a conversation with my mother, which is less and less all the time, because it's just not, it's not fun. It's not fun. I mean, this is why we live 3,000 miles apart. Anyway, she knows exactly what buttons to push, but now I'm starting to figure out how to sort of take the charge off of them a little bit.
So don't you think we install the buttons from the higher generation to the lower, the older generation to the lower generation? Yeah.
Generally, yeah, I would say
Yeah.
that's true.
Yeah.
But
then-
you know, I think if I'm honest, I also know some of the buttons to push for her too. I just tend not to go there because that's not part of my personality. But as I thought about it, I was like, well, you know, if I said this, this, and this, I know I'd get a rise. I know it would infuriate her, but like, to what end? So
but I don't think you install those buttons. You just recognize them.
I just recognize those.
Right.
Yeah, it's usually the parents that I think, and the
Right.
older siblings that do the installations.
Right, and older sister, because you look at your kids and they're just reacting to the stuff that they've been exposed to, and you know, it's like, oh my gosh, yeah. So that's cool though. I like that, Donna. Yeah.
Marilyn,
you.
do you want to say something too?
no,
Oh,
I-
it's Mimi. Then after Marilyn, Mimi.
Oh, no, just by not engaging, you're leaving room for the compassion. You know, being able to say, gee, if I had her experience, that's really compassionate and kind, especially when we're talking. I mean, we happen to feel the same way about politics. It's a big thing and it's a hard thing to acclimate with somebody. But it's interesting because the more we realize how it's not personal, just like Marie was saying, it just opens us up to have more and more compassion. You know, we don't have to drink the poison, but we can have compassion for those who are holding a cup, you know, because I have an opinion. I'll be quiet now.
Mimi, did you want to say something?
Yes. With all that said, doesn't respect come from us having respect for ourselves first? Showing respect for ourselves is the most powerful tool, because when we show it to ourselves, others will see it too.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can probably elaborate, but I think that that's the love yourself part of this, right? Yeah, but it's a little hard to do sometimes with that narrative in our heads, you know, but I think you're right. That's where this all stems from.
Yeah, but just remembering during those hard times, when you show respect for yourself, others will carry that too. Because when we immediately open our mouth and say what comes out of it, instead, you know, take a couple of breaths and let it just be a strainer. Just get rid of everything. And then with the thought, come back and, you know, show the respect for yourself, then maybe we'll create that button.
That also goes to boundaries. That also goes to boundaries. That self-respect is also the boundaries that you hold up for yourself, and that teaches others how to be respectful of you, we set up that construct of how we want to be treated is through our boundaries, right? Sometimes you don't need to speak it for somebody to understand, okay, she's super nice, but don't mess with her.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I think those go hand in hand, that respect, but it stems from love, loving oneself.
Yeah, I think it's, when he talks about projection, someone will lash out at you because of their own projection about, right, how they feel internally. I think when we can kind of project out that love, that compassion, that kind of goes out into the universe. And I think that when people feel that, I think there's less of an inclination, they're impacted by it. I mean, I have found it that with people who I feel like has an edge with me, and if I can just kind of bring myself down, create no barrier, just be there with like love and not be like in any way combative, they come down, I find that they become less reactive. So I think it's a two-way street, right?
Yeah.
People can be project onto you, and I think, projecting our own sense of love and compassion towards others and what's the word, like when non-combativeness, I think when people realize that you're not going to argue with them or get into it, they lose interest,
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
The Marie, you talked a little bit about the empathic side of this when you were talking about your husband, and so that plays into all of this as well for all of the ladies here. But it's that, like you said, setting the boundaries. Go ahead, Alona.
So in relationship to that, I want to tie it back to the respect. And Mimi, it's true, but here's a real difficult thing. I'm sure you have people in your family or people that who chose not to get vaccinated. And you have to really respect that boundary, right? And you have to be able to not make that personal, and you have to not get caught up in it, and you have to allow them to have their journey regardless of the repercussions that are going to happen from that journey. And so if we are really going to respect ourselves and respect others, we have to respect people who don't hold our positions. And we have to find a way to compassionately love and accept them where they are. Otherwise, we're just playing the same game in reverse. And this is not easy to do. It's extremely difficult to do. And when you talk about that harmlessness, Betty, people can feel whether that there is even a remote judgment or opinion at the back of the behavior that you're trying to do to make you look respectful. You can't fake that. It's either real and you don't care, or you're engaged somehow and defending from something, and then everything falls apart. I always like to say, nobody gets away with anything. You just may never see it in your lifetime. And if you really believe that there is a higher power and there's balance that occurs throughout creation, and you really trust in that, then you can hold respect. But if you don't believe that and you want justice, it's really hard to not take anything personally.
Or not being judgmental.
Mhm.
That being judgmental right away,
Yeah.
lose respect for yourself.
Yeah. And that takes us back to the first agreement. You can't get away from that,
I haven't read ahead, but I'm just gathering some clues that the word assumption, I'm assuming there's some assumption in the next agreement. So I don't want to touch on that right now too much, but I do want to say that, sometimes, and I need to explain this. I'm not sure how to explain this, but I feel like it is relevant. So my littlest sister, Colleen, and I have another sister, Nalani, who's a couple years younger than me. And she and I are oil and water, night and day, black and white, never see eye to eye on anything. And within maybe 10 or 15 minutes of being together, we're pretty much ready to kill each other. So we keep our distance. We have for years. But over the Thanksgiving holiday, she asked if she and her daughter could come stay with me for a week. And immediately I went like this and thought, okay, put away the knives, anything sharp, It's a very small place I have here. How far can I put her so that we have our own little boundaries and space and everything like that? And I went into it with this mindset. I just was certain that this was going to be unbearable. And it actually was wonderful. And we actually had a great time. I think there was a part of me that said, don't imprint, what's the word? Don't project on her my fears and concerns already. Let's just see what happens. And, I'm 58 years old. I might have wanted to figure this out a long time ago, but I didn't. And I will say it was so enjoyable. And if she had said to me, can I come back every year at this time, I would say yes, because it was such, it was just beautiful. And it's kind of sad that I hadn't worked on this years ago so that we could have had this relationship for a very long time, but I'm going to appreciate it and not take it for granted now. But I feel like that's kind of relevant to this.
It's the power of the word. It's the power of the word that you said to yourself. And you're seeing right there how powerful the word is and how it ignited and how it changed that dynamic. I think this is a great example of how powerful the word is, and it has the ability to either create a wonderful place for all of us to relate with, or it has the power to ruin us. That's how powerful the word is. And you just gave an example of the power of the word.
You chose love and it worked.
Wow, now I'm going to cry.
But Lisa,
look at me making good choices.
But
if you've noticed, all of this is layers. They're layered, right? And the more you practice and the more you evolve, the greater these principles become and the easier they are to do and follow. And I've seen, through the practice of all of this, that you can first read it and you internalize a little bit organically, you can internalize and maybe apply it a little bit. But again, as you're growing and evolving, these principles you'll see more and more the layering of all of this. It's like each time you evolve to another, you'll see another level of these principles.
Yeah. It is also making me look back on my past, on decisions I have made and things that I might have done different, that might have changed, had a different outcome. Also makes me look back at times that I think I did it right, So this is very enlightening book for me. So is everyone else enjoying the book? Getting out of it what you'd hoped to?
I was just going to jump in and say, I think all of this comes with age. It's the AGE disease that we all get. We mature up and we let go of so many little things in life and experience everything, and we mature up.
Yeah, I had a friend once, she was great, just really very clear with what she wanted and needed in life. She was very clear and she left it out there for all of us. And she had said to me that she didn't have time in her life for making new friends. She valued the ones that she had and she needed to slough off the rest. And I remember standing by her all the time going, God, I hope I'm not the one that gets sloughed off, because she'd shared that with me. And I just was like, oh, please don't slough me off. She actually did, but in a good way. It was all in a good way. She moved and it was all very organic, but I appreciated that honesty, right? I appreciated, just like you said, Mimi, that maturity and that depth that came with her aging, that she just didn't need to be surrounded by millions of people. She just needed those few. So
I look at myself compare myself to even last year or 2 years ago, how much I've changed, how much I've respect more, acceptance, and letting go. All of that has, daily I experience it, and try to calm yourself. I mean, when I see my kids doing exactly what I did back in the days, it's like, wow, I did that too. But now I would not dare to do the same thing or judge the same way.
Sophia?
Oh, good. I have something to say.
Okay.
Along the line, you asked if we're getting anything out of the book, and I will say, with respect to the book, I had a difficulty with the language initially because it was so simple, but then I realized that's really the charm of the book. It's actually the best, the effective aspect of it, because I think it allows for evolution of the person and maybe evolution of the interpretation as you are changing. Whereas if it had been extremely specific and used a lot of technical or psychological jargon, it would have been kind of like cast in stone, and you would move, but it wouldn't. So I found that really interesting, helpful. I have friends who won't consider any other point of view. I found that our discussion about respecting other people, and I don't remember who was having the mom problem, between having the mom that isn't as like-minded.
Donna.
I have the hardest time with that. I have, not because I want other people to share my opinion, although it would be great because you all should. Really, I'm right about everything. Gosh, what a loss for you.
Because it's the right one.
But how to go forward with that with conversations. And I will give an example. I was communicating with a friend who was so different than me, and we were discussing South Africa, and specifically Afrikaners, and they're very conservative by nature. And if you know anything about the history of South Africa, you can kind of get a taste that they're not really the most easygoing, really open-minded, okay, maybe racist people. Okay, but we actually had this discussion where I'm saying, I had these neighbors, Afrikaners, and the husband was this way, and I worked with an Afrikaner, and he was this way, and I had many experiences, and I still have a couple who are friends. The men are horrible, okay? Because actually I met somebody the other day who explained to me why, because they're both he's a guy who's an Afrikaner from South Africa, so it was okay for him to say they're jerks. Okay, he explained to me about the domestication, to use the terminology in our book, and so I had this discussion with my friend, and he's saying, but I know this guy, he's really great, and they're really, he was in South Africa during the Troubles, he lives in my town, and the Black people were really terrible, and he explained to me why, and I understand why he hates them. And I'm like, where do we go with this discussion? How do I apply these principles and continue to discuss, or do I let it go? What do I do?
Well, I'm going to bring the experts in on this because, my opinion is, just let it go. But it sounds it's more difficult, I think, than that. I think it's more complicated. Janet, do you want to chime in?
I was hoping Marie would, because I think I have the same thing, that there are certain things where I just have, I hit a spot like Sophie was talking about, and I spent some time in South Africa, so I absolutely know what you're talking about. And so I would have the same feeling, and then I try to look at what's my problem, but and I go down this rabbit hole of trying to figure out myself, that I have these judgments, and I get stuck. Like right now, I'm writing letters to myself, trying to figure out my own crap, and I don't know if that's where you're supposed to go, Marie, with that kind of thing. But
Marie, you're on mute.
Yeah. Okay. So in the book, he addresses some of these things, and he, the first thing is to recognize where they're coming from, understanding what their story is. Right. And it's the judgment that, yes, it's horrible what's going on and we don't agree with it, but it's also understand where their mentality is and what their capacity is to absorb anything you have to say. So it's recognizing, hey, anything I say is only going to fuel more. So for me, it's about neutrality and being respectful, because if you're in a group of people that have these like-minded way of thinking, I think there's an effect too in psychology, and I forgot the term that we use for that, even though the person kind of wavers, they might side with the group just because they want to be a part of the group. There's a term for that.
Entrainment, some entrainment.
I think so, but there's a specific term and I just can't, and I better know this because I'm going to need it for my exam, but but there's all of this has been studied, and in a situation like this, from my perspective, is not to fuel it, but rather you could be respectful in your own view and respect that this is where they are, understanding what the dynamics of the group is at that moment. I know in my own culture, there are so many things that I don't agree with, and I have to just not say anything because I know whatever I say is just going to fuel the argument. It's the same way when I go to Saddleback Church. I don't agree with everything they say. And when they say stuff, I just plug my ears and I go, that doesn't pertain to something that I believe. And I can't raise my hand and go, I disagree with you in the middle of church. So for me, it comes back again to respecting where they are. And that the way I feel you can begin to change that is through how you model it. I don't know, Ilona, what do you think?
So Sophia, here's where I would ask the question. Do you want a relationship with which person? Do you want a relationship with the guy? Do you want a relationship with all the guys? Because this really does become, what relationship am I committed to exploring? And which ones do I really don't care about? If you're having a pedagogical discussion about philosophies, governments, and abuses, people are going to have all kinds of things, and they're going to say all kinds of things, and they're going to trigger each other left and right. And those things can just be out there because that's pedagogical discussion. That's how academics works, right? That's just what it does. Let's put it out on the table. Let's beat it up. Let's see who wins. Let's see who loses. Let's see, right? So if you're going to play in that game and knock yourself out. Be impeccable with how much you're going to judge. Be impeccable with how much you're going to hold a position. Be honest about that. But if you're really concerned about a relationship, and this is about a one-on-one relationship or a relationship with a group, then you follow the book. And there's no room for that kind of conflict. And there's no room for that kind of pedagogical discussion. And there's no room for making war with words, because the war with words ends up with bullets.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think I'm pretty good with, I respect, like, I'm just using this person as an example, and I'll make it more general, but I do respect the person. And I don't, I mean, in general, like liberal versus conservative, I accept that. I guess it's really whether or not you can, I think you have to be respectful, and then you have to be strong in yourself, kind of going back to the word aspect. And yes, that will kind of, guide you through the rest of it in terms of how to react, right?
Well, it's not reaction.
Not react.
Right.
Oops. Not react. That's bad. See, there you go. See, it's hard. That first part, the first agreement, very difficult.
No, but this is good. So if you love this person and you want to explore a relationship with this person, you create boundaries that work for each other. That's it. You just create, and certain things are going to be acceptable and certain things are not. But your relationship is more important than your positions. And that's the difference. But I am going to say, when you get involved in a pedagogical thing, right, where it's more just sort of out there, that's a different story. That's a different conversation.
I think Betty wants to say something, and then Alona, will you send me the word pedagogical?
I know.
I don't know what that word is, and you've used it 3 times, and I'm like, and everyone else is on the screen like this. Yeah, I know what Alona's talking about, but I have no idea what pedagogical is. So, but Betty, what were you going to say?
I was going to say that, we make choices about what we want to engage in or not. And sometimes, who you have to be the person to say, is my life's energy worth this exertion of what this is going to mean to me? And I think it's perfectly fine to say, you know what? I'm at peace with not saying anything. I'm going to walk away, or emotionally kind of just, walk away from this and not engage. I think that's really okay. Because sometimes I think that we feel like we should be doing things and we really don't have to,
I think that's part of that first chapter, right? Being impeccable with your word, putting
And
out what you want to take in, right?
Yeah. And then the other piece that he talks about in the second agreement is that when we have this need to interject, and say something in a group, a lot of times it's a reflection of our own agreements that we've made with ourselves, which does take us back to the first agreement, right? It's that need, our egoic need to say, hey, I got to be right somehow, and I got to insert my opinion somewhere. And that really comes back to what my agreements are, which is your beliefs, the things that you've been taught, and then putting it back out. So it does take us back to the first agreement. See, you can't get away from it. It's the first agreement.
Did that help, Sophia?
Yeah, oh no, it totally helps. Basically, it all goes back to the first chapter 2, the first agreements, and because it does, it does inform how to move forward. Generally, it's kind of an umbrella, and everything springs from that as a corollary, really.
Yeah, that's why the first agreement's so hard.
Yeah.
And Sophia, you do bring up a good point. And I have and this happened with you, Lisa, too. You were talking about it. There are points in which we grow out of people and we grow into new ones. And it's important to respect that and just let it happen. Some people are meant to be with us for a long time. Some people are meant to be with us for just a short period of time. And the same applies to us. Sometimes we just need to be with a person at a particular period of time in their journey. And if we hang on longer, we'll just mess it up. So it's important to know that goodbyes are just as important as hellos.
Okay, that was beautiful.
Yeah, but Ilona, I've been thinking about that, about are there people in my life that we're so different that I just think it's not going to be beneficial, but I can't decide if it's an ego thing by making that, like, why don't you see the world the way I do? Or if it's standing up for my truth, and so that's what I get to a place where I go, okay, where am I making this decision from? Well,
so there are two ways that I would approach that. First off, I really, observe the person and look at, am I really a useful contribution to their life at this point? And if I can't say yes, then I know what that answer is. And that is the best that I can do with how I sort of neutrally approaching what's going on. And it may hurt me. It may hurt me to do it. But if I really love the person, then I need to respect that answer and then do it. And then just put them in the hands of God and let love just be love. I think the ego thing is, if you need to feel something from that either departure or the staying, if you're committed to feeling something in particular, then to me there's a trigger. Generally, when I make that decision, there's no trigger. It's really clear, and I just understand this is the best thing I can do in loving this person.
Okay. Mary Beth. go.
Mary Beth?
I'm going to speak for Marilyn. Marilyn has this great phrase and it rhymes, so it works, right? Rejection is protection. So
Oh,
if,
yeah.
yeah, I love that one, Marilyn.
Rejection is God's protection.
Thanks for speaking for Marilyn.
Thank you. I've learned that, and it took me a very, very long time, but it's true.
Wow. Wow, this has been a fun morning. I feel like I've learned a lot. I took a lot of notes. I don't know what, I learned a new word. Don't know what it means, but Ilona, what does pedagogical mean?
So it's like that larger structure. You're exploring a larger structure, a larger industry, and it's a more of a theoretical perspective on that. And it's being flushed out and really threshed to come to some understanding that gets put out into the world.
It means teaching.
Yeah, there we go. That's the way I see pedagogical.
This is words with Ilona and Mary Beth. Thank you. Learning new words. So this was great, ladies. Does anybody have any more comments or questions? Marie, did you want to say anything to wrap this up?
Well, I just want you to notice that this agreement really comes down to emotion, right? All of these emotions that come up for us. And when you're responding from a place of love. And when you're reacting, you're actually reacting from a place of fear.
Okay. Writing that one down too.
You know, it's interesting because once you really start focusing on that, you realize you don't want to be, you know, when you're having a conversation, your brain goes to, what am I going to respond instead of hearing? That gets dropped away. You know, the ego gets dropped away as you're present, you know, so yeah, it's powerful.
Wow, very. Yay, we did it.
Yeah.
So next week is February 14th. Is that day good for everybody, or has anybody got some plans? Oh, it's good for you, Liz. Okay, Liz will be there. All right, see you guys on Monday.
She's got to bring Gwen. Isn't she the cutest thing?
Oh my God. Beautiful.
So beautiful. Look how alert she is. Is she 3 months yet, Liz?
Yeah, she's gonna be 4 months on the 28th,
Wow.
last day of the month. But yeah, she just would not sleep right now. She just wanted to be a part of this conversation.
Yeah.
We wanted her too. I love her. Like she almost waves. You know?
Actually cooing earlier. It was like she was just adding on. She just was talking earlier.
What a strong spirit. Oh, that's so cool.
April, are you doing good?
Yes, I'm well. I'm doing very well, thank you.
Oh, good. It's good to see you.
Thank you too.
And Colleen, how are you doing? Sorry, I'm going to call on everybody that didn't talk today, so we can check in.
I'm doing well, thanks.
Good.
My mic doesn't work. That's why I don't talk.
That's all right. Well, actually, it works pretty well. Colleen and I belong to a movie club, and sometimes a movie club, it doesn't work well, but it's working really well right now.
Is it?
Okay.
Yeah, we can hear you great. So maybe it's the fact that we've got all the, you know, the movie club it's loud and boisterous. So it's easy for a few of us to get muted, I guess. So, and did anybody else want to say anything? Okay.
Idell, you don't talk.
Oh yeah, sorry, Idell.
No, I mean, I'm enlightened by everybody's interpretations or opinions, and I don't know. I don't think I have anything additional to add to the conversation at this point.
Well, we'll keep asking you.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, ladies. And Liz, did you want to say one thing before we left or?
Oh, I think I wanted to add on. So I have a lot of loss issues, but my cousin, my little cousin, who's like way younger than me, would always say the people that are just a part of your life for like a chapter, or just look at them as like skipping stones. I don't know why. I just really liked that. It still sucks, like loss still sucks, but just looking at them as like not skipping stones, stepping stones.
Stepping stones, yeah. yeah.
Skipping stones.
Hope for the best. No, sorry. Like, I just feel like I'm constantly drooling at the mouth. Stepping stones. There we go.
Perfect.
I kind of like skipping stones if I'm visualizing it properly.
The ocean.
All right, ladies,
Well,
thank
thank
you.
you, Lisa and Marie and everybody and Ilona. Yeah, thank you.
Hi all.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Valentine's Day next week. So we gotta do some self-love next week.
Self-love sounds good.
Yes.
And are we still on the same chapter or are we moving forward?
The
Marie?
next one. Yeah, we're
Next
moving
one?
on to the assumptions. Yeah, because
Okay.
that one goes hand in hand with number 2. So,
Okay,
all right. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Take care.
bye,
Bye.
thanks.
Bye.